Have you ever thought about what war really sounds like? It's not just explosions. It's the silence after. It's a mother screaming for her child buried under rubble. It's a soldier staring at his empty hands after losing his friend. It's a child crying because their home is now dust. And yet, the world calls it strategy. Leaders call it defense. But you need to know the truth. There are no winners in war, only broken families, only stolen futures, only dreams turned into ashes. Look beyond the flags. Look beyond the politics. Look into the faces of the people. You'll see fear, loss, and desperation. You'll see children holding on to stuffed toys instead of food. You'll see fathers digging through rubble with their bare hands. This is not a movie. This is life. And it's happening right now in Ukraine. They say it's Russia versus Ukraine. But in reality, it's humanity versus destruction. Behind every headline, there's a human story. Behind every operation, there's a life shattered forever. When you hear the news, you hear numbers: 50 killed, 200 injured, thousands displaced. But what you don't hear is the heartbeat behind those numbers. You don't see the faces. You don't know the names. And you're not told about the dreams that died with them. Every statistic hides a story. A father who once worked 2 jobs to build a better future for his children, now gone. A little girl who loved to paint sunsets, who had dreams of becoming an artist, now silenced forever. A mother who spent years saving to send her son to college, now digging through rubble, searching for him. Numbers don't cry. Numbers don't scream. Numbers don't bleed, but people do. When they tell you 1,000 families displaced, it sounds like data, but it's not. It's a grandmother clutching the only photograph she has left of her husband. It's a teenage boy walking barefoot across a destroyed street, carrying his younger sister on his back. It's parents holding their children close at night, praying the next bomb won't find them. Behind every statistic, there's laughter that once filled a room. There are dreams once whispered between lovers under the stars. There are birthday candles that will never be lit. There are songs that will never be sung again. But when numbers are presented, they feel distant. They make tragedy look smaller. They make humanity easier to ignore. Because when the mind sees numbers, the heart forgets the faces. The truth is, every life lost had a name. Every name had a story. Every story had dreams. And those dreams were as real and alive as yours. Somewhere right now, a child is crying for a parent who isn't coming back. Somewhere, a father is kneeling in silence, holding his son's favorite toy. Somewhere, a mother is staring at an empty bed, wishing for one more goodnight kiss. When we reduce lives to statistics, we lose connection. We lose empathy. We forget that these people once had the same fears, the same hopes, the same love for life as we do. Behind every statistic hides a human soul, a soul that loved, a soul that fought, a soul that mattered. Behind every statistic hides a story that deserved to be told, a dream that deserved to be lived. Behind every statistic hides a human life. When war begins, the world divides itself into sides. Leaders pick flags. Governments pick allies. Media picks narratives. But war itself chooses nothing. It doesn't care about borders, beliefs, or politics. It doesn't see right or wrong. It doesn't ask who started it or who is to blame. War consumes. War destroys. And the ones who suffer first are always the innocent. It's never the generals who pay the price. It's the child hiding under a bed, trembling as bombs shake the walls. It's the mother who whispers prayers into her baby's ears, trying to drown out the sound of gunfire. It's the old man who has lived through 2 wars already, now watching his home burn for the 3rd time. When you hear about Ukraine and Russia, Gaza and Israel, or any battlefield around the world, the headlines talk about strategies, operations, and counterattacks. But they don't tell you about the empty classrooms. They don't show you the tiny shoes left behind in the rubble. They don't capture the silent cries of a boy sitting alone because his entire family is gone. War does not choose sides, but we do. And when we choose sides blindly, we forget the faces in between. We forget that, on both sides, there are children who just want to go to school. There are parents who only want to see their kids grow up. There are grandparents who just want to spend their last days in peace. A missile doesn't care which language you speak. A bullet doesn't ask which religion you follow. An explosion doesn't choose which family it will tear apart. War simply takes. Behind every destroyed building is a family's story. A wedding photo that will never hang on the wall again. A kitchen where laughter once echoed, but now lies in silence. A playground where children used to run, now covered in dust and blood. When you strip away the politics, you see the truth. There are no winners. Because even when one side claims victory, the scars left behind never heal. The grief doesn't fade. The trauma doesn't vanish. And the memories of what was lost stay forever. Look beyond the maps and flags. Look beyond the speeches and headlines. See the people. See the mothers running barefoot, carrying their babies. See the fathers searching through rubble for any sign of life. See the children clutching their toys, too young to understand why their world has turned into fire. Every war, no matter where it begins, writes the same story. And that story is always written in the tears of the innocent. Because they are the first to fall. They always are. It's not just soldiers who fight the battles. It's civilians who live through them. It's the families who are forced to choose between fleeing their homes or risking their lives. It's the children who go to bed hungry because aid never reaches them. It's the teenagers who should be chasing dreams, but are instead digging graves. War has no mercy. It doesn't pause to decide who deserves to live and who deserves to die. It moves like fire, consuming everything in its path: lives, homes, hopes, and futures. And every time a bomb falls, somewhere in the world, a mother's scream goes unheard. Every time a gun is fired, another child's laughter disappears forever. Every time a city burns, humanity loses a piece of itself. There is a strange thing about the world we live in. Lines drawn on maps decide who belongs and who doesn't. Flags decide who is right and who is wrong. Power decides who lives and who dies. And yet, when you strip away the borders, when you silence the speeches, when you erase the politics, you're left with the same beating hearts, the same fragile lives, the same dreams. but we've built walls around humanity. We've allowed geography to define compassion. We've let politics divide empathy. We've allowed power to dictate whose suffering matters and whose doesn't. When a missile strikes a home, it doesn't stop to check passports. It doesn't ask which side of the border you stand on. It doesn't care what religion you follow or what language you speak. It only destroys. And yet, leaders argue over territory while families are left to bury their dead with their own hands. Behind every headline, there's a child clutching their mother's dress, trembling from sounds they don't understand. Behind every statistic, there's a father staring at the ruins of a home he spent years building. Behind every strategic victory, there's a grandmother searching through rubble for photographs of the life she once had. Borders don't bleed, but people do. Policies don't grieve, but parents do. Power doesn't suffer, but children do. Still, the world fights for land, for control, for influence. Generals plan battles from safe rooms while the innocent pay the price. Politicians shake hands while families lose theirs in explosions. Leaders give speeches while ordinary people pray for one more sunrise. The irony is painful. Humanity has built systems to protect itself, yet those systems fail the very people they were meant to serve. Borders are defended more fiercely than lives. Power is protected more carefully than children. Politics becomes louder than the cries of mothers searching for their sons. Somewhere right now, a young girl is writing her dreams in a diary by candlelight, unaware that the world outside is deciding her future without asking her. Somewhere, a boy stares at the sky, wondering why planes bring bombs instead of rain. Somewhere, a father folds his hands in prayer, not for victory, but for survival. We talk about nations, policies, and negotiations, but we forget the most basic truth. We all belong to the same species. The color of your passport doesn't change the color of your blood. Your religion doesn't make your tears fall differently. Your nationality doesn't decide whether your pain matters less than someone else's. Power convinces us to take sides, to see enemies instead of humans. It convinces us that some lives are worth saving and others are not. It blinds us to the truth that when an innocent life is lost, humanity as a whole loses. Children don't choose where they are born. They don't choose flags, languages, or ideologies. And yet, they are the ones carrying the heaviest weight of decisions they never made. The ones running barefoot across borders they don't understand. The ones holding their siblings tightly as the world around them burns. Every war, every conflict, every political game has the same cost. Human lives. Lives that can never be replaced. Dreams that will never return. Stories that will never be told. Leaders argue over power as if it's eternal. But power fades. Borders shift. Politics change. What remains forever are the scars, carved into the hearts of those who survived, carried by generations who inherit trauma they never asked for. And still, the world debates who is right and who is wrong, while the ground beneath both sides is soaked with the same blood. No land is worth more than a single heartbeat. No ideology is worth more than a single laugh. No throne is worth more than a single child's future. Because when we forget that, We lose the very thing that makes us human. We lose compassion. We lose connection. We lose ourselves. Borders are lines. Politics are decisions. Power is temporary, but a human life is everything. Somewhere along the way, the world taught us to hide our hearts. We were told that to survive, we must be strong. That strength means silence. That strength means indifference. That strength means keeping your distance so pain doesn't reach you. But what if they were wrong? What if strength isn't found in shutting down your emotions, but in opening them? What if real courage isn't about turning away, but about choosing to care when it's easier not to? Empathy is not weakness. Empathy is power. It is the quiet force that connects strangers, heals wounds, and reminds us that beneath everything, every label, every identity, every difference, we are the same. When you feel someone's pain as your own, it doesn't make you fragile. It makes you human. It makes you capable of seeing beyond yourself. It allows you to hold the weight of another person's world without letting it crush them alone. Empathy builds bridges where walls once stood. It turns them into. It softens hardened hearts and gives hope where despair once lived. It's the voice inside you that whispers, "Their suffering matters as much as mine." The strongest people are not the ones who feel nothing. The strongest are the ones who allow themselves to feel deeply and still choose to act with compassion, because it's easier to look away than to stay. It's easier to ignore someone's pain than to hold space for it. But when you choose to stay, to listen, to care, you create change, one small act at a time. Empathy is why revolutions begin. It's why strangers risk their lives for people they've never met. It's why ordinary people rise in extraordinary ways when tragedy strikes. Because when we allow ourselves to feel connected, the suffering of one becomes the responsibility of all. We live in a world that glorifies power, wealth, and control, but none of those can replace the strength of a heart that chooses kindness. Empathy can stop conflicts before they start. It can mend relationships broken by pride. It can turn fear into understanding and hate into hope. And yet, people mistake empathy for weakness because they do not understand its weight. To feel deeply in a world that teaches numbness is an act of rebellion. To care when others turn away is an act of courage. To stand in someone else's pain and not look for an escape, that is strength beyond measure. Because empathy is the thread that holds humanity together. It is the quiet reminder that every life carries value. It is the proof that we are never truly alone in this world. There comes a moment in everyone's life when silence feels safer than speaking. When you want to say something, but your lips don't move. When you feel anger boiling inside you, but fear tells you to stay quiet. When you witness injustice, but you convince yourself it's not your battle to fight. And that's how silence wins. That's how systems built on inequality stay alive. That's how cruelty thrives in plain sight. Not because evil is stronger, but because too many good people choose to stay silent. Silence feels safe, but it is never neutral. It always benefits the side of power, not the side of justice. It allows lies to spread, violence to grow, and suffering to continue unchecked. Silence is the comfort zone where change goes to die. Your voice, no matter how small it feels, carries weight. You may not have a platform. You may not have millions of followers. You may not have power, wealth, or influence. But your words, your refusal to stay silent, can ripple further than you will ever see. Every movement in history began with a voice that refused to be silenced. One person stood up. One person spoke when others were afraid. One person said, "Enough." And slowly others joined. A whisper became a conversation. A conversation became a demand. A demand became a revolution. When you speak, you give permission for others to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. Your words plant seeds in minds you will never meet. Your voice reaches places your feet may never walk. But fear is the greatest weapon against change. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of losing relationships, jobs, or safety. And so, we stay quiet, convincing ourselves that someone else will speak. But what if everyone thought the same? What if every person waited for someone braver, someone louder, someone stronger to act first? The truth is, no one else is coming. It has always been ordinary people with ordinary voices who create extraordinary change. Speaking up doesn't always mean shouting in crowds. Sometimes it means having a difficult conversation with a friend. Sometimes it means correcting someone when they spread lies. Sometimes it means choosing truth over comfort, even when it's inconvenient. Your voice matters, especially when it trembles. Because courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means moving forward despite it. Every time you speak, you reclaim your power. Every time you tell your story, you take away someone's excuse to ignore reality. Think about the people who came before you. Those who fought for rights you have today. They faced ridicule, violence, and imprisonment, but they kept speaking anyway. They refused to be silent, even when the cost was everything. And because they spoke, the world changed. Now, it's your turn. Not because your voice alone will fix everything, but because change only happens when voices unite. When individuals decide they will no longer stay quiet. When collective noise drowns out collective oppression. Silence has never ended wars. Silence has never stopped corruption. Silence has never protected the vulnerable. Silence has only ever protected power. Every time you stay silent in the face of injustice, you send a message, not just to yourself, but to everyone watching. You tell the world, this is okay. You give permission for harm to continue. And slowly, without realizing it, silence becomes complicity. But when you speak, even softly, even imperfectly, you disrupt that cycle. You force people to pay attention. You spark questions. You open doors for conversations that lead to awareness, and awareness leads to action. Sometimes, your voice won't change someone's mind. Sometimes, people will resist, argue, and dismiss you. But even then, your words plant a seed, and seeds have a way of growing long after they're buried. History remembers those who spoke when it mattered most. Not the loudest, but the ones who refused to hide behind fear. Every time someone says, "I wish things were different," the answer is always the same. Make them different. Speak. Challenge. Question. Refuse to normalize what should never be accepted. There will be times when your voice shakes. Use it anyway. There will be times when people turn away. Speak anyway. There will be times when you feel unheard. Speak anyway. Because silence guarantees nothing will change. Your words carry energy. They can ignite hope in someone who feels invisible. They can comfort someone drowning in loneliness. They can inspire action in someone who's been waiting for a reason to rise. When one voice becomes many, silence loses its power. When enough people speak, systems crack. When enough voices unite, even the unshakable begins to move. Because silence is not safety. Silence is surrender, and your voice, your truth, your courage, your refusal to accept injustice can create ripples strong enough to become waves.